So we were on to the point of sources of preparing the final accounts, wherein we understood that there are two sources of preparing the final accounts. One source of preparing the final accounts is your trial balance, and the another source is your additional information, by which way you can come to know if there are any adjustments to be done in the account balances which are already brought into the trial balance. That's why these additional information are also called as the adjustments. You can switch on your videos now. The next point that we need to understand is that how these adjustments will appear in the final accounts. How will the trial balance items appear in the final accounts, and how will the additional information adjustments will be appearing in the final accounts? That's what we are going to talk about. Let's first talk about the trial balance items now. If suppose this is my trial balance. In the trial balance, we have incomes, expenses, assets, and liabilities. Correct or not? When I'm preparing my profit and loss account, that is primarily to know the net profit of my business or not. Today, I'll clarify this point that for all practical purpose, whenever I use the term as profit and loss account, it includes the manufacturing account as well as trading account. So profit and loss account not only means the net profit wala profit and loss account, but it also includes the manufacturing account as well as trading account. So here is my profit and loss account. Now income accounts will normally have credit balance. Are the nominal accounts or not? Expense accounts will normally have debit balance, are also the nominal accounts. Asset accounts can be personal accounts, can be real accounts, and liability accounts are generally the personal accounts. Correct or not? Now, all the incomes of the business will first be appearing in the profit and loss account credit side. As I said earlier also, profit and loss account does not mean literally only profit and loss account. Profit and loss account includes the manufacturing account as well as trading account. So all the incomes, direct income होगा तो trading account में जाएगा, indirect income होगा तो P&L account में आएगा. Now how to guess that, how to judge that, that we have already talked about. Right. Then all the expenses will appear in the profit and loss account debit side. All the assets from the trial balance will go into the balance sheet asset side. Of course, these assets will be divided into the fixed assets, current assets. The presentation will be like that. And all the liabilities will come into the balance sheet liabilities side. Now, what has happened, if you would observe here, you have understood that how are you going to take those items to the final accounts, and on top of that you've also understood the point that every transaction is going to have only one effect in the final accounts or not. Each of the transaction or each of the item which is given in the trial balance is only having one effect when we are preparing our final accounts. That is what I said yesterday. Because for these all, the basic accounting entry is already completed. And as the basic accounting entry for those transactions is already completed, therefore we'll have only one effect thereof when we are preparing our final accounts. All right. But when it comes to the adjustments, when it comes to the additional information, each adjustment, each additional information will have two effects when you are preparing the final accounts. Now I'm going to talk about those two effects for each of the adjustment. पहले हमने उसको accounting entry point of view से सीखा है. जब हम लोग journal entry सीख रहे थे उस समय पे, if you would remember, I'll just present that particular slide in front of you. I think at the time of subsidiary book, no, before that we did it, na? जर्नल का तो ये क्वेश्चन था. We had done some questions, if you remember. Unfiled notes में ही होगा वो. No. No. Do you remember the date or something like that? We did it, of course, before in the journal only we did it, right? Along with the journal entries, we had done that. Basic accounts transaction. Year ending adjustment, ऐसा कुछ तो सिखाया था मैंने आपको. Yeah, these were those. Year end adjustments, prepaid expenses, outstanding expenses, incomes pre-received, incomes receivable, goods distributed, goods lost, goods withdrawn, bad dates, depreciation. Do you remember this? At that time, I had given the note on this. On each of the item, we had seen the note and we had done the accounting entries on that. हर एक की अलग अलग accounting entry लिखी थी हमने. After discussing these adjustments, see, outstanding expense, what is the accounting entry for that? Prepaid expense, what is the accounting entry? Income receivable. This is all what we have discussed already, isn't it? And now when it comes to the accounting of that, or to the effects of that, which we have to give in our final accounts, that is what we are going to discuss. So now the process will not be from the perspective of accounting entry. The process will be from the perspective of effects in final accounts directly. Am I right? So what I'll do now is, because we have already had a good discussion on these all adjustments, so I'll directly come on to the adjustment, its effect in trading oblique P&L account, and its effect in the balance sheet. That is how we are going to discuss these all adjustments now. Am I right with that? So we'll have the adjustments. Effects in P&L account. P&L account, as I said earlier, includes trading as well as PM manufacturing account. And effect in balance sheet. How will those come in our balance sheet and P&L account? Of course, we are talking about these items from the perspective of adjustments only. Matlab ye that if these items are given to us in our trial balance, then in that case those will not be having the effects as this. These items, if those are given after the trial balance as the additional information to us in the question, only then we will be having the separate adjustments on that. Am I right? मैं एक example दिखा देता हूं आपको, so that it will be more comfortable for you. Now this is the same formats what we have discussed. If you'd observe this, ये तो बहुत ही particular सा question था. This one. This first part of it is talking about what? The trial balance. It is basically giving us the information related to the balances of different ledger accounts. All right. Up till this. Now, the word that they have used is adjustments. Means what? This is the adjustment that we have to do in the items of trial balance. Did you observe it? That's how we are going to learn those different adjustments. In fact, as I said earlier also, this sheet I'm going to share with you people, because when we start solving the problems at that time, you need to have it, because तुमको homework मिलेगा तो करना पड़ेगा ना. तो उसके लिए पहले से तुम्हारे पास वो शीट होना जरूरी है ना. सर आप पढ़ाते कम और होमवर्क ज्यादा देते हो, सर ये गलत है सर. Isn't it? बहुत बदनाम करते हैं लोग मुझे इसी बात पे. So anyways, I'm having those all adjustments in here itself. So I'll just talk about those adjustments with reference to this sheet, as I'm going to share this with you people, so you'll be able to understand that in a proper manner. All right. The very first, if you take the example of closing stock should be valued at cost price or NRV, not the market price, but here we use the term as NRV, that is net realizable value. As per accounting standard 2 valuation of inventory, the stock of a business is expected to be valued at its cost or NRV, whichever is less. Why so? Because we are following the concept of conservatism. Conservatism says what? That whenever you are anticipating an expense or loss, you should recognize that. You should bring it to the books of accounts immediately. But if you are anticipating an income or gain, you should ignore it for the time being till the time it arises. तो मान लो मैंने 50,000 के गुड्स खरीदे और उसकी आज की मार्केट वैल्यू जो है, आज अगर मैं वो मार्केट में बेचने जाऊंगा तो मुझे उसका 80,000 मिलेगा. तो इन दैट केस माय कॉस्ट इज लेसर और नॉट. अगर मैं उस क्लोजिंग स्टॉक को 80,000 पे वैल्यू कर दूं तो इन दैट केस it will unnecessarily be increasing my profit or not, which is an unrealized profit, which is an anticipated profit. Why anticipated profit? क्योंकि जब तक वो गुड्स नहीं बिकते तब तक वो मुझे प्रॉफिट हुआ ही नहीं या होगा ही नहीं. Correct or not? So I'm not expected to recognize that 30,000 का profit in that case. However, अगर वही 50,000 के गुड्स की जब मैंने वैल्यूएशन की और उन 50,000 के गुड्स की आज की वैल्यू मान लो सिर्फ 40,000 रुपए रह गई. आज अगर वो हम लोग गुड्स बेचने निकलते हैं तो we'll be able to realize, we'll be able to get only 40,000 out of that. So in that case we are having the loss of 10,000 or not. Now this is an anticipated loss, क्योंकि आज भी अगर वो गुड्स बेचेंगे तो भी 10,000 कम नहीं जाएंगे. So that means there is an anticipated loss. And as per conservatism concept, I am expected to recognize that anticipated loss immediately in my books of accounts. That is why अगर क्वेश्चन में प्रॉब्लम में कहीं पे भी दिया हो, क्लोजिंग स्टॉक का कॉस्ट भी दिया हुआ है और एनआरवी या मार्केट प्राइस भी दिया हुआ है, तो उन दोनों में से जो कम अमाउंट रहेगी, बाय दैट वैल्यू वी विल बी डूइंग द अकाउंटिंग ऑफ दैट क्लोजिंग स्टॉक. डिड यू अंडरस्टैंड दिस पॉइंट? तो अगर क्वेश्चन में दिया हुआ है क्लोजिंग स्टॉक एट कॉस्ट इज 40,000 एंड मार्केट प्राइस इज 60,000, then you'll ignore 60,000, you'll consider 40,000 only. But if it is given the closing stock is having the value of cost of 50,000 with the market price of 45,000, in that case you will ignore 50,000 and you will do the accounting at 45,000 and not at 50,000. Did you understand that point? इससे ऑटोमेटिकली क्या होगा, जब हम क्लोजिंग स्टॉक को पहले से ही 5,000 रुपए कम से हम लोग अकाउंटिंग करेंगे तो हमारा लॉस ऑलरेडी रिकॉग्नाइज हो गया है. नहीं, मैं 50,000 पे गुड्स की वैल्यू दिखाऊं और उसके बाद में उसका लॉस बुक करूं, इसके बजाय आई कैन डायरेक्टली शो इट एट 45,000 एंड बाय दैट वे इफेक्टिवली द लॉस इज बुक्ड और नॉट. यस और नो? आदित्य चाय की जरूरत है तुझे? तेजू, आदित्य को बीच बीच में ऐसे ही ऑन हो रहा है यार. अभी वापस 1 बजे लेक्चर है, बीच में मुझे वो दही चावल भी खाना है और दही चावल खा के मुझे नींद आएगी. आज रसम चावल है. पता नहीं सर, घर वाले रोज सरप्राइज देते हैं ऐसे, जैसे खाने का टाइम आता है सरप्राइज, जो तुझे बिल्कुल पसंद नहीं वो खाना बना है. So anyways, ऐसा कई बार होता है, यू नो, कि you have to eat something that you don't like at all and you don't have an option on that. You cannot tell your parents, नहीं यार तुम मेरी मेरी जरूरतों की कुछ भी कदर नहीं करते हो। कहते हैं कि तू जब कमाने लगेगा ना तब तू खुद कदर कर लेना, isn't it? तब तक तो भैया, मतलब जब तक बाप कमाई पे हैं तब तक जैसा मिल रहा है, जो मिल रहा है सह लो। जब आप कमाई पे आ जाओगे तो जो चाहोगे वो मिल जाएगा, isn't it? Even for the girls, the same rule is applicable these days, you know. Gone are the days when the parents would take care of the kids financially. Even for the girls, I'm saying कि शादी तक के तो हमको ही पाल पोस के बड़ा करना है, nothing of that kind. Even from girls, the parents do expect कि हाँ एक बार तुम अपने पैरों पे खड़े हो जाओ, पैसे कमाने लग जाओ, कुछ यहाँ पे देके जाओ, बाद में शादी करेंगे. Well, so sarcasm apart, होता है, but what's wrong in that? What's wrong in that? Like पेरेंट्स को कम से कम ये तो सोचने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी ना यार, सीए करने में जितना खर्चा आएगा वो सारा हम उठाएंगे, और उसके बाद में सीए बनने के बाद में मेरी बेटी जितना भी पैसा कमाएगी वो सब पति को देगी. दिस इज नॉट करेक्ट, इजंट इट? कुछ तो यहाँ पे भी छोड़ के जाना चाहिए. भले सस्ता सस्ता वाला कोर्स चुना है तुमने कंपैरेटिवली, क्योंकि तुम 6 महीने पहले तक जो कोर्सेज के बारे में सोचते थे, इजंट इट, याद है तुमको वो 6 महीने पहले योर थॉट प्रोसेस, CET, NEET, something like that, you know? सर कहाँ आपने यादें दिला दी सर. मतलब हमें वो कौन सी मूवी थी, पहले भी शायद बताया था तुमको गाना, वो जब चंद्रचूड़ सिंह एंड अरशद वारसी वर द एक्टर्स इन दैट. माचिस 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 मूवी का सॉन्ग है वो, चप्पा चप्पा चरखा चले, एंड इन दैट देयर इज दिस लाइन, छोड़ आए हम वो गलियां, अब वहां वापस नहीं जाना है. Isn't it? प्रतीक्षा, जाना है वापस? नहीं सर, नहीं, याद मत दिलाओ सर प्लीज. आजकल हमें सीए कोर्स बहुत अच्छा लगने लगा है सर, बिकॉज वी आर फोकसिंग ऑन द फिगर्स एवरी नाउ एंड देन, एंड दैट मेक्स अ लॉट ऑफ डिफरेंस. Isn't it? रेणु सही बात है ना? हाँ सर, यही ठीक है सर. यही तो हम घर वालों को 8 स्टैंडर्ड से समझा रहे थे कि हमको ऐसे फालतू के कोर्सेस मत करवाओ. कहाँ 11th-12th में साइंस में डाल दिया कह के कि सारे ऑप्शंस ओपन रहते हैं, और उसके बाद में आखिर आए क्या, तो सीए कर रहे, कॉमर्स कर रहे. रफसाना ऐसे रिएक्ट कर रही है कि सर आप मेरी कहानी बता रहे हो आप यहाँ पे. इज इट सो? नहीं सर, 12th के बाद ही डिसाइड हुआ कि अब और कुछ करना है. अब साइंस से मन भर गया सर. Well, anyways, so when it comes to the adjustment related to the closing stock, first the value of closing stock will always be cost or NRV, whichever is less. That will not be at cost price. Now, closing stock is nothing but out of the stock that is purchased by the business or not. या तो आप ट्रेडिंग अकाउंट के डेबिट साइड में परचेसेस माइनस कर लो एंड शो द नेट परचेसेस देयर, और you show this closing stock into the trading account credit side. Why I need to show this closing stock into the trading account credit side is basically because I have to comply with the matching principle. My matching principle says what? Match the expenses for the year with the income of the same year or not. So if I'm expected to match my expenses with the income of the same year, I am expected to show only that much of purchased goods as my expense जितने मैंने इस साल में कंज्यूम किए, जितने मैंने इस साल में यूज किए. तो जो गुड्स अभी तक अनयूज्ड या अनसोल्ड है, that cannot be treated as my expense of current year, and that's why either you reduce it from the purchases onto the debit side or you show it into the credit side of trading account. Now, why you are expected to show it in the trading account credit side? Basically because the closing stock of 1 year becomes the opening stock of next year or not. So instead of every time reducing it from purchases of the current year, adding it to the purchases of next year, we can simply show it as closing stock of this year and opening stock of next year. Am I right? So the first effect for the closing stock will be, it will be appearing in our trading account onto the credit side, and second effect will be, it will appear in the balance sheet onto the asset side. Is it clear? So if you look at it, if I've been given the adjustment like this, I'll just present it that how will those be appearing. क्योंकि अब स्टेटमेंट तो ऑलरेडी आपके सामने, मैं स्टेटमेंट वापस से नहीं बनाता हूं, आई डायरेक्टली प्रेजेंट इट दैट हाउ दोस विल बी इफेक्टेड व्हेन यू आर प्रिपेयरिंग योर फाइनल अकाउंट्स. Suppose after the trial balance you are given the adjustment of closing stock was rupees 2,50,000. Am I right? So in this case, I'll prepare a trading account because all the adjustments related to the goods are done into the trading or manufacturing account only. And then I'll prepare the balance sheet. So if this is my trading account and this is my balance, I hope this is going on in your regular lectures also. नहीं, अभी तो depreciation चल रहा है ना तुम्हारा, ये हो गया depreciation खत्म, चल रहा है अब तक के. So I'll have the option as what, to purchase into the inner amount column less closing stock and the balance to the outer amount column. These purchases are called as adjusted purchases. The net purchases which are shown in the trading account debit side in this case are called as adjusted purchases. This is my option 1 when I'm preparing my trading account. What is my option 2? I'll directly show, instead of reducing from my purchases, I'll directly show it into the trading account credit side as what? By closing stock with the amount thereof. This is one effect. हर transaction के दो effect देने या नहीं? One is debit and second is credit. The second effect thereof will appear in my balance sheet onto the asset side as closing stock, or we can call that as stock in trade. Either which way it can appear. So this is how it will be appearing in the balance sheet asset side under the heading of current assets. Did you understand this? Presentation समझ में आया? Now here you all already have the value, so 2,50,000 पे दोनों जगहों पे value आ जाएगी. Am I right? Next, outstanding unpaid due but not paid payable expenses. Now this is the expense of my current year, but I have not yet paid it, and as it is not yet been paid, so I have to treat, again matching principle has to be followed. So I have to treat that as the expense of my current year. Therefore, it will be added to the expense of the respective expense in the current year itself. If you remember, we had passed the entry as respective expense account debit to outstanding expense account. The respective expense को क्यों डेबिट किया था? क्योंकि मुझे खर्च को बढ़ाना था. और outstanding expense को क्यों क्रेडिट किया था? क्योंकि वो मेरी liability थी. So I had to show that in my balance sheet as a liability. In the same way, we are going to do the adjustment here also. So how will it be appearing in my final accounts? The appearance thereof, just observe it. Suppose the adjustment given to me is salaries outstanding or payable are rupees 25,000. All right. So in this case, I'll go to my P&L account. I'll go into my profit and loss account in this case. Into the profit and loss account, onto the debit side, I'll write to salaries. Let's say the amount paid for salaries is 1 lakh. This will be done in the inner amount column, not in the outer amount column. The amount already paid is 1 lakh. Add outstanding rupees 25,000. So the total salaries that will be debited, that will be shown in the outer amount column of P&L account debit side will be how much? 1,25,000. Did you understand this? 1 लाख क्यों कहां से आया? ट्रायल बैलेंस में से. That amount is already been paid. And 25,000 is still payable. Therefore, my total expense for the current year is 1,25,000 or not. And this is how that 1,25,000 will appear in my profit and loss account. पर ये तो उस 25,000 की एक ही इफेक्ट हो गया एडजस्टमेंट का. I have to give the second effect of that also or not. As this 25,000 is still payable, that is my liability, and therefore that will appear in what? In the balance sheet onto the liabilities side. I'll write what? Outstanding salaries or salaries payable as rupees 25,000. Did you get it? Yes or no? All going good for everyone? The next one, that is the adjustment related to the prepaid, unexpired or paid in advance expenses. What do I mean by prepaid expenses? The amount that I have paid to someone without receiving the benefit against that. अब तक मुझे उस पर्टिकुलर अमाउंट का बेनिफिट नहीं मिला है. And that's why it may be called as prepaid expense. That may be called as expense paid in advance. That may be called as the expenses unexpired. Unexpired means what? Insurance premium दिया, उसका benefit अभी भी मिलना बाकी है. So insurance premium in that case will be called as unexpired insurance. So these all expenses which are prepaid, which are paid in advance, cannot be treated as the expense of current year, as these are the expense of the subsequent accounting year. अगर वो subsequent financial year का खर्च है, इसका मतलब मेरे इस साल के खर्च में से उसे मुझे कम करना पड़ेगा या नहीं? एंड क्योंकि मुझे उसके अगेंस्ट अभी भी बेनिफिट मिलना बाकी है, so that becomes a kind of asset for me or not? So one effect of prepaid expense will be subtracting from the respective expense, and the another effect will be showing that in the balance sheet asset side. Am I clear? So suppose I have been given the adjustment as prepaid rent amounted to rupees 20,000. तो इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि जो भी मुझे ट्रायल बैलेंस में दिया गया रेंट होगा, उस 1 लाख उस अमाउंट में से मुझे इस 20,000 रुपए को सब्ट्रैक्ट करना है. मान लो ट्रायल बैलेंस में मुझे 2,40,000 रुपए का रेंट दिया गया है. So how will it be given the effects of? Just observe it. In the P&L account debit side, what will I do? To rent, let's say 2,40,000, the amount paid by us. This is given in trial balance. जो मैं पहले वाली अमाउंट ले रहा हूँ, 1 लाख जो मैंने सैलरीज की ली थी, 2,40,000 जो मैं रेंट की ले रहा हूँ, these are the amounts which are given in the trial balance. Am I right? Subtract therefrom prepaid rent rupees 20,000 And the outer amount column of P&L account will show what? 2,20,000. Did you understand this? And at the same time, now this prepaid rent becomes my asset or not? And as it is becoming my asset, therefore it will be shown in the balance sheet on the asset side under the heading of current assets as what? Prepaid rent. How much? 20,000. Are you people getting the things right? Yes or no? Yes. The next adjustment that is related to bad dates means what? The debtors to whom you had sold the goods on credit basis, they have defaulted your payment. And as they have defaulted your payment, as that amount receivable is now becoming irrecoverable, we call that as bad debts. Such bad debts will be an operating loss for the business and therefore it will be debited into the profit and loss account. And at the same time, these bad debts will be reduced from the debtors in the balance sheet onto the asset side. Why will those be reduced? Because those bad debts were not yet subtracted. We had passed the entry for bad debts as bad debt account debit to respective customer account. पर अगर वो एडजस्टमेंट में दिया हुआ है, इसका मतलब अब तक उन बैड डेट्स को आपने बैलेंस शीट के डेटर्स में से सब्ट्रैक्ट नहीं किया हुआ है. And for that purpose, we need to do the adjustment related to the bad dates. Am I right? So, if suppose the adjustment is given to us as bad dates amounted to rupees 1,500, right? What will be the effect of this? In my P&L account, onto the debit side, I'll write 2 bad debts rupees 1,500 because this is my expense, this is my loss. Yes or no? And at the same time, in my balance sheet, onto the asset side, under the heading of current assets, I'll have what? Debtors. Inner amount column, let's say the total debtors were 50,000, 50,000. From that, I'll subtract bad dates. Of course, no one likes the bad dates. Everyone is expecting that all the dates should be good date, isn't it? नहीं तो वो खाते खाते मुंह खराब हो जाएगा ना. डेट्स वही वाले समझ. तुमको कौन सा लगा था डेट? तुम्हारी स्माइल कुछ और ही बता रही है मुझे. सर ये लॉकडाउन का पीरियड चल रहा है, कहां आप डेट्स की बातें कर रहे हो सर? यहाँ हम लोग घर से बाहर नहीं निकल पा रहे हैं और आप डेट डेट कर रहे हो. Isn't it? कोई हमें बाहर पूछता तक नहीं है. कहां कौन सी डेट सर? 48,500. Did you understand the presentation? Am I going good for everyone? Next. Now I'm not going to do this reserve for doubtful debts for the time being. We'll be discussing this reserve for doubtful debt in a separate manner because this is a provision for an anticipated loss. And that's why we'll be discussing it separately. The depreciation on asset is an expense for the business or not? Whenever we need to charge the depreciation, at that time we pass the entry as depreciation account debit to respective asset account. मतलब हमें जितना depreciation का amount है वो respective asset के balance में से subtract करना होगा, and at the same time we'll be required to show this depreciation in our profit and loss account, in our income statement as our expense from the business. Correct or not? So how will those be appearing in our final accounts? Let's observe it. I hope this presentation is going absolutely fine for everyone. Depreciation on furniture is to be charged at 10%. This is the adjustment given to us. So how will I go about this particular adjustment? In my balance sheet, onto the asset side, I'll show what? Furniture under the heading of fixed assets. Let's say furniture given in the trial balance is 1 lakh. I need to charge the depreciation on that at the rate of 10% or not. So from this, less depreciation at 10%. 10% of what? 10% of the book value of the asset, that is 10,000. Yes or no? So that means the net amount of asset that will be shown is 90,000 in the balance sheet. Are you able to understand this? And at the same time, the amount of depreciation being the expense of my business, the operating expense of my business, therefore that depreciation amount will appear into my profit and loss account debit side. So in my P&L account debit side, I'll show what? To depreciation rupees 10,000. Only the amount of depreciation will come in P&L account and not the total amount. But if there are multiple assets, the depreciation on all those multiple assets can be shown together in the profit and loss account. Like you have building, you have furniture, you have vehicle, you have machinery. For all such assets, जब हम बैलेंस शीट में प्रेजेंट करेंगे तब अलग अलग असेट का डिप्रिसिएशन हम लोग अलग अलग कैलकुलेट करके प्रेजेंट करेंगे. But when it comes to the presentation in the profit and loss account, we can show a single heading to depreciation. Under that, we'll write furniture this much, building this much, vehicle this much, machinery this much, and the total of that will be appearing in the P&L account debit side outer column. Did you get that? Yes or no? The next one, the next adjustment is related to the goods withdrawn by the proprietor. Now, what do I mean by goods withdrawn by proprietor? That's a kind of drawing only or not? Now, these drawings, you can have the two effects of this again in two ways. Like we did for closing stock, we can either reduce it from purchases or we can show it into the trading account credit side. ट्रेडिंग अकाउंट के डेबिट साइड में अगर परचेस में से सब्ट्रैक्ट करते हैं परचेसेस लेस ड्राइंग्स, वी कैन डू इट, or we can show it into the trading account onto the credit side as buy goods withdrawn. And the second effect of that is this is a withdrawal against the capital only or not, and therefore that is reduced from the capital in the balance sheet onto the liability side. याद है आपको जब मैंने आपके सामने बैलेंस शीट का फॉर्मेट रखा था, this format of balance sheet, what did we show in that? Opening capital, opening capital, add or subtract from that the profit or loss during the year, and then subtract therefrom the drawings for the year or not. तो अगर गुड्स विड्रॉ होते हैं तो दैट विल आल्सो बी सब्ट्रैक्टेड इन द बैलेंस शीट लायबिलिटी साइड फ्रॉम द कैपिटल ओनली. Now just observe it, the adjustment related to that. If it is given goods withdrawn by proprietor of rupees 10,000 not accounted means what, उसका अब तक के ट्रायल बैलेंस में इफेक्ट नहीं दिया है. That is why it is called as not accounted. I'll have two effects of this as what? One into my trading account. Again, in trading account we'll have two options. Option 1, to purchase whatever is the amount, subtract goods withdrawn with rupees 10,000 क्योंकि 10,000 के गुड्स विड्रॉ किए, and the balancing figure will be appearing in the trading account debit side. This is our option 1. Whereas we can have the another option as what? We can show it into the trading account credit side as buy goods withdrawn. This is our option 2. But this is only for one effect. Second effect abhi dena baki hai. Are you understanding this point? Either you reduce from purchases in the trading account debit side or you show it into the balance sheet, trading account credit side as such. And then the second effect of that will go into the balance sheet. What will be the effect in balance sheet? In the balance sheet, on to the liability side, you'll have capital. Whatever is the amount of that, less drawings. Because goods withdrawn are nothing but added, added to the drawings only or not. And the balancing figure of capital will be appearing in the outermost column. You get that? So one effect of that will go into the trading account, either onto the debit side as subtracted from purchases or shown into the trading account credit side. That's one effect. And second effect of this will be what? Into the balance sheet onto the liabilities side as subtracted from the capital. Got it? मेरे हिसाब से आज के लिए इतने एडजस्टमेंट्स काफी हैं. ये जिस तरह से तुम्हारा चेहरा मुरझाता जा रहा है, इट इज क्लियरली इंडिकेटिंग कि आप थोड़ा सा दिमाग से बाहर निकलने लगा है. So the rest of the things will continue tomorrow at 8:15 as usual, our normal lecture. Sorry, 9:15. So at 9:15 tomorrow we'll be continuing with the adjustments further. Thank you for today. Today I'll share that sheet with you people, soft copy of that.